So good evening, everybody. Lovely to have everyone attending, and fantastic to welcome Anne to host really our talk this evening. So another of A.R.E.A's hour-long chats and listening to Anne on her expertise and the wonders of her course, really, that we're very proud to say A.R.E.A is going to be hosting along with Anne as well. So we're going to sort of do this as a little bit of a question and answer, and so I'm ready with some questions for Anne, and hopefully anybody else that's got any questions as we go through, if you can put them into the chat. Hayley's going to be marshalling that aspect for us, and also the chat on Facebook. Anybody got any questions on Facebook, please, that's being marshaled as well, and we will hopefully address any questions that anybody's got as we go through. So get yourselves all comfy, continue with your evening meal if you're in the UK and various other places you might be. Has everyone got a band or a tape measure or something, because we are going to do some practical? If you haven't, then perhaps you can very, very quickly pop and either get yourself a tape measure or a pair of tights or something, because there is some practical element to this. You don't obviously have to, but if you'd like sort of just to have a deeper understanding by doing as well yourself. Okay. So can I have, from the people I can actually see, can I have a thumbs up if we're all ready to go? Perfect. Okay. So there we go. We've got a nice big one of big pictures.
Really big?
Yes, you're really big. Get on the screen. I'm not used to seeing people on this bigger screen. I'm used to my little laptop. Oh, has that gone unpinned again? No, right. Okay. So perfect. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Anne, and if you can just, you know, we'll see how it goes, and there we go. So let's start off then with the name Peyow. So it's Peyow Aqua Pilates.
Yeah.
Where did that name come from? How did it originate? Because it's very unusual.
Yes, it is. It's actually a Chinese Mandarin word for floating. And I was originating this program. We were starting to work out how we were going to implement this in the water. And I was working at a very Eastern hotel called the Peninsula Chicago. And they wanted to have a mind-body class that was, you know, not unfocused and jumping around, and aerobics and stuff like we normally see in the water. They wanted to have a very Zen class. And so they looked up different words, you know, that were could be, you know, in line with that. And Peyow seemed kind of cool. It rhymes with meow, so we thought that would be easy to pronounce. Essentially, it just means floating Pilates. So that's how we translated it. Anyway, so you don't, the name is not that memorable, but I feel like the process of getting all of the exercises from the different Pilates apparatuses and the mat and the barrels and the Cadillac and the reformer and all that kind of stuff, those taking every single exercise like that and implementing it into the water. So it's a comprehensive program.
I mean, I think it is memorable because once you know the background to it, the floating aspect,
yeah,
it makes absolute sense. Because I must admit, when I first came across it, I thought, why? And then you explained to me, and I thought, that makes perfect sense. And then, of course, it does stick and it does stay there as well. So,
yeah.
So, what is your background? You know, why choose Pilates out of all the other kind of sort of fitness mediums? And what was it about Pilates, and what's your background in Pilates?
Well, my background is really, I taught a lot of different fitness modalities throughout the years. I've been doing this since 1991. And so I had a lot of that background, and I always wanted to delve into Pilates. We kind of did it in college, whatever we could learn. And I found a licensed training center in Chicago. And I took a weekend course with A.R.E.A. I got their mat certification, and then I went to the licensed training center for Stott Pilates, Marathon Health and Fitness. And I just was blown away by how they approached exercise. And of course, if any of you, I know that Sheila's here in the room, and she's a bodybuilder and very strong. And we have your friend who's the strong woman that you're. Okay, the fish crow outside here comes every single day to say hi to me, so I'm going to just shut him off. Anyway, so I overpowered the exercises. I was really, kind of implementing a lot of my global muscles, taking over and pulling, not initiating with the intrinsic small muscles, So, of course, as a result of being in fitness all these years, I was injured, different times throughout my life. And I feel like the Pilates approach was the thing that kept me then, from that point on, from getting more injured. It taught me how to really look at the biomechanics of an exercise, to work the core first before I mobilize the rest of the body. And so I feel like it was a savior for me to have a long life as an instructor doing this. Sorry, my lighting is changing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Oh, and then my background. So then after I worked there, I went there to get certified. And as I was going through the certification courses, I started right away putting those things. So as I was digesting them, I was also playing in the water. And it took about 3 years to really, to get them translated. And then at the end of that 3 years, I was certified through Stott. Later on, I went to work at the Licensed Training Center, and I became an IT, an instructor trainer through Stott Pilates. And I go around, I taught there for 10 years at the certification center. So certified lots of Chicago people and people from the tri-state area, and actually people from other countries came and took the courses there. And it's really some of the best education that I got. And so I'm still working for Stott Pilates and doing courses for them.
Excellent. So how, like you're saying that as you were sort of doing your courses and as you were going on, you were sort of taking it into the water.
Yeah.
Mat Pilates, by nature of the word, you should be down on the floor.
Right.
So,
You're prone or something, yeah.
So that must have taken you a bit of time to actually sort of work that one out. Sort of, can you give us any thoughts, any ideas without?
Yeah. I think you could relate to this because of your talk on immersion, and I hope this is interesting to people, but the Pilates, so all the apparatuses usually have an anchor point, and there's a spring resistance happening with the machines. So you're coming away and the spring is getting stretched and it's kind of snapping you back. And so you have to stabilize as you're going out, and you have to do some bracing, and then to control the movement back to center. So that kind of thing, being off center and recovering center, that was like balanced recovery work, really, in the water. But I had a big aha moment. I was looking at the shapes of the exercises, and I was putting them in the water, and they weren't feeling the same. A lot of times I would get myself into position, and I'd be like, I can't really feel my obliques contracting here. I can't feel that slight lumbar flexion. I can when I'm doing a teaser, So I wanted to get that same, let me show you that. So that's like a V-sit, in yoga, where I'm going to show a little bit of stuff later, but where there is a little bit of lumbar flexion and the obliques are holding that. And I couldn't find that in the water. So I had the aha moment when you realize that the water, and I don't know how many of you are Pilates or land people versus water, but the water has the upward thrust, and then on land we have the gravity. But either way, we're still kind of sometimes pulling away from an anchor point, and how to get that happening in the water and mimic it. I said, oh, I think I have to adjust the buoyancy equipment so that it makes me contract the muscles in the same way. And I think I actually have to use my grounding on the pool floor as my center of balance and pulling back towards it stuff. Not relying so much on the buoyancy equipment, which pushes everything up, right? So I wanted to use more core with that. So buoyancy versus gravity was a big aha moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that sort of meta-center effect, which again is part of my physiology of immersion things, when you actually understand about that, I think.
Right, and I mean, the center of buoyancy and the center of gravity are different.
Yeah.
So when you get immersed in the water, if you want to talk about that topic a little bit, how it's a little bit higher and lower depending on the depth of the water and all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, it's well that's still that talk. I don't think I did metacentric effect
Oh,
in my basic talk, but that talk is still available. So if people want to have a look at that, and especially understand about buoyancy, because I do talk a lot about that. But
yeah.
this is not about physiology of immersion. This is about Peyow Aqua Pilates. So what's the difference then with, like, you know, so many people sort of are, I think, confused really about the difference between yoga and Pilates. And they say, oh, it's the same sort of thing. And then some people say, oh, I'm doing yoga. No, I'm doing Pilates, and I'm breathing like this and I'm doing like that. So can you explain the difference between them, between the yoga and Pilates, and especially on the breathing aspects? I know that's very different.
Yeah, I say, so I've taken a lot of yoga, and but that's not my area of expertise. I'm the first to tell you, and I've actually taught it somewhat. And it's a very ancient practice. So, so the yoga breathing, just to compare it a little bit to the Pilates breathing, I'm going to step back a little bit, is allowing, so let's talk about the Pilates breath, I might as well. So allowing the abdominals to distend, okay, in the yoga inhale. So if you place one hand here on your chest and one hand here on your belly, and you were to do a yoga breath, you would relax the front abdominal wall. So, and allow that belly to fill up, right? And on the exhale, it would pull back in, okay? The reason I put your hand here is because I don't know if you have any clients like this or patients like this where they are breathing here. And while that is an anatomical way that the chest expands, it is not the most efficient way of breathing, is this chest breathing or this scalene breathing when people are very distressed. So anyway, so we want to get them to have this, you know, this will lift a little bit. It is compared in physiological terms like a fulcrum, you know, so that the sternum lifts up. But we talk about it in Pilates as a natural breath pattern. So we talk about how naturally, if my lungs and my ribs were sitting like this, okay, they're my arms now. And the natural breath pattern would kind of be, they would open and lift to the side, the front would lift a little bit, and if you get into even deeper breaths, you're going to get pec and lat and serratus, all kinds of other muscles helping that inhalation and exhalation. But basically, it's a three-dimensional breath, right? Like sort of a bellows kind of thing. And so in Pilates, we don't necessarily, we want to relax the diaphragm to go down. So we want that to go down. And I don't know about you guys, but since COVID and since being on lockdown and sort of being, I think we're all going through a little trauma. So this is why it was especially interesting to me when Haley came up with this subject today, because of the deep breathing. I don't know if you have been breathing deeply for the last year. I'm finding that a lot of my clients are not, and so it's very difficult for them to allow that contraction of the diaphragm to create the vacuum to let that air come in. But the difference in the yoga and the Pilates is basically the Pilates breath is in two parts. So we're going to inhale and have that, you know, that bellowing out. And on the exhale, we're going to use the abdominal wall to help force that exhalation by pursing our lips together. So it's as if you were blowing through a straw or through a balloon, you know, blowing up several balloons for your kid's birthday party. And just that, go ahead and try that little forced exhalation, everybody. I don't care what you do on your inhale, but just do a little. You can do a shh sound. Sometimes that helps force it a little bit. Do one more for me. And exhale. So I don't know if you feel the abdominals helping that forced exhalation at all. Expiration is really like, it's an automatic thing. We will exhale. But if we do the forced exhalation, we do have a little co-contraction with the abdominal wall, pelvic floor happening to help expel all that air. Now do this one thing for me so I can, so to answer that final question is that yoga will allow the distension here on the inhale, okay? In Pilates, we're thinking drop that diaphragm down and vertical. So in the abdominal cavity, we're thinking breathing down into the lower lobes of the lungs, widening. And yoga people do breathe, they do the yoga breath into the back as well. So we do have that similar expansion, but we don't relax completely the abdominal wall on the inhale and push it out. Okay, so I know that that's a basic difference. The other thing is I try to say that Pilates pulls things towards the midline of the body for control, and yoga is trying to open things away. So opening the hips, opening the shoulders, opening the heart chakras. So if that is a generalization, people may pick a bone with me, but that's the way I explain it to my clients.
I think it's a very good explanation. What about with the swimming pool? So obviously breathing against the pressure. Now you've got the buoyancy of the water, which is pushing the diaphragm up.
Yeah.
So talk a little.
What else is it pushing up? Yeah, it's pushing up anything that floats, right? Like, so anything that's less dense. And it's also pushing up, it can lift pelvic floor too. So if diaphragm and pelvic floor are the top and the bottom of the abdominal cavity, right? So they can be related. So the water can push up on both. So anytime you have pelvic floor dysfunction or something like that, that forced exhale to bring the diaphragm back up and to contract the pelvic floor, it will happen. So I've had people kind of have a disassociation or after childbirth have problems connecting with that pelvic floor thing, but I know that, you know, submersion in water, there is a little bit more, but yeah, it is pushing up. But what's happening too is the compression on the immersion, you know, like it's going into water, is very compressive on the body. That's why we have that nice Venus return, but compressing here on the ribs, the water's pushing in. So people are going to have a little bit more proprioceptive feedback to open and move the bones of the ribs. And in fact, you guys, you want to grab your tights or your flex band and feel that little expansion sideways right now. If you take the band around the bottom of your rib cage and you just kind of cross it here in front, or if you have a tape measure, it's kind of my favorite thing to do. You can put your fingers touching both and then let go, kind of let one slide as you inhale, and you can see how many inches you have of expansion in your rib cage there. So you want to flare those. We are fish, right? So we want to use our gills to open up our rib cage here. So if you inhale, and you can even open the elbows if you don't get tension in the shoulders, and then exhale. So pull it tight so you've got kind of an empire waist dress on, and you're going to inhale against the resistance of that. And on the exhale, try to really zip up and use that abdominal wall. Inhale, flare out. So the two-part breath is inhale into the lower lobes of the lungs, and on the exhale, that co-contraction of the pelvic floor, that assisted expiration with the abdominal wall helping.
I hope everyone could feel that.
I hope, tell me that, you guys, when we go into the chat, I'd like to know if people are breathing shorter. 8 centimeters difference? Holy cow, that's great, Kate. So I can tell you a quick story. There was a British actor who was at Stratford, and I did some workshops with him, and he had like a full 3.5-inch expansion of his rib cage to do that, you know, not from Pilates, from smoking, like he just, and from holding long soliloquies. Anyway, so yeah, you can, the more mobile the bones of the rib cage are, not hypermobile, but the more you can move the intercostals, the more you're moving the houses of the lungs to allow the breath in.
Excellent. Excellent. Sorry, I was just getting someone in, allowing someone else.
Yeah, I know, I'm letting him in too.
Multitasking. Okay, so during lockdown, okay, so all the sitting that we've been doing and the lack of movement and the compression of all the digestive organs and everything like that,
yeah,
it's all affected people's breathing capacity.
It totally has. I'm going to share this screen with you a little bit just because I brought this up. A friend of, so the license training center that I worked at, her brother did this article in the Washington Post. Yeah, and I'll share this PDF with you. I just got it like the other day. It's an article, but it's written for lay people, and I know you guys can't see all the things, but you can see the organs, right? So unexpected things that happen with this are not only a respiratory effect, but the pancreas starts like spitting out more insulin. There's poor circulation in the legs. We're not getting that. So, you know, the curvatures of the spine can actually collapse, you know, the lung capacity. So the thoracic, you know, the kyphosis, even the lordosis can actually, you know, inhibit breathing, and the lungs don't even go down there. Up here, you're talking about that top rib here. It can really inhibit the, and look at his neck, it's completely pinched on that rib. So I will send this graphic to you guys. It's a poster from the Washington Post.
So many people since this lockdown. I've seen so many people with that posture.
Yeah, the only,
when we go back, we're going to need to take everybody so that their feet are on the floor and they're neck deep, but still feet down, just to try and elongate them, I think, when we get into the pool.
It was probably 6 months ago where I saw a physical therapy status that was 6 months ago, that people had to get therapy because they couldn't even like move anymore. Because their arm swing is gone because they're not doing the walking. So that's not like allowing any kind of movement on the neck vertebrae, right? So it's not allowing any kind of rotation or swing, and or the fascia. Like, so it's, that arm swing stopping is a big deal. And then the forward tech neck position, of course, is happening as well. So people had to see physiotherapists to like even be able to reach up because their lats now are shortened.
Yeah.
Their pecs are like, to even like, they couldn't even like lift the ribs off of the organs. They had to go see a manual physical therapist.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
a therapist, but not so good for an individual.
We're going to need like a lot of therapy, I think. You know, after this, we're going to need the breath and relaxation techniques. I think that the people who learn visually for this breathing, so this is proprioceptive teaching. You can talk about breathing down your spine, breathing into your toes. You know, that's an image. The fish gills are inhaling here. Images work really well, but also, you know, people, put them in different positions. So they've, I always teach like the breath in kind of different positions, and a really nice way to teach that breath is to kind of fold forward. Since we tend to breathe here in the front and take all our air in like that, if we fold over the front, so if we are to sit and we kind of, let me just pull this back, flex forward, right, and round down. I'm just going to let my arms hang here, and I'm going to take some breaths in here. If you want to just do this in your chair, and try to expand the bottom ribs and back. Inhale and try to expand. It might be very tight there in the lower thoracic, and then come on up. Right? It might be really tight on some people. And you can do all kinds of things in the pool to mimic that, like have them against the pool wall and have either, their hands here where they fold over their hands, and then they try to bend the ribs in and to open the lower thoracic in the back. Great to try to get some mobilization back there in the lower thoracic.
I think, not only have you got all the people who've been sitting on either PlayStations, working from home and all that.
Yeah.
But, when we were discussing the other day about putting this talk out, we were talking about COVID. So, I think this is going to be good for people who had COVID and with the long COVID or been on bed rest, who've been ill. So, talk us a little bit through, some of that as well, if you can. And
I will.
Benefit.
So that's funny because I just talked about something, that was forward or flexed forward. But what they're finding with some of the COVID patients is to be proning them to have more breath capacity in the unused portion of our back of our rib cage and our lower thoracic and our lower lobes of our lungs. So if we compress the front, if you can round yourself over a physio ball, and you can start to just stay there for a while and breathe, without turning your head to the side like those long COVID patients have that impingement happening now with the neuro stuff because they have been impinged right there at the neck. So, but if you can round yourself over a physio ball and just slightly turn your head to the side and start to breathe into the ball and allow that ball to compress that whole front part, when you get off of that physio ball, you will start to feel a lot more freedom in the intercostals to breathe. So let's talk about the thing that happens in the lower lobes of the lungs with COVID. So there's a lot of secretions that are happening down there. It's kind of like a pneumonia, but essentially like solidifying down there in the lower lobes of the lungs. And I wasn't planning to tell you this, but I will tell you, I did see someone in the late stages of, my mom, in the late stages of COVID, and I was allowed to see her breath pattern before she passed away, which was very, it was emotional and it was beautiful and meaningful for me to be there. But as a teacher, I was thinking, oh Lord, I could see this virus up close. I could see the pattern. I could see what was happening, and so that day, the most interesting thing to me was she had been in a wheelchair, tooling around the facility, and before this, and so she had that kind of wheelchair thing, but she could still sing and everything like that. So she had that very sunken posture. But in the late stages of COVID, her neck was stretched like maybe 2 inches longer, trying to, have that inhalation. So, so that is how much blockage is happening here. People are trying to breathe. So, so it's to recreate that, I know that Pilates breathing can help the people who've had mild cases of it, and maybe people who have the long COVID and who have it's lingering on and on, the symptoms. They will need to do some kind of breath training. Pilates, yoga, I don't care what kind of training it is, Tai Chi, but making it a part of your daily routine would be a great thing. Let me show you this one thing, because I know, Linda, you and I have talked about this, but I want to share. It's so cool. Here it is. There is a British, opera troupe. It's not opening. There's a British opera troupe, and they have a program on singers helping these long COVID patients. So for a singer, you've got to let that diaphragm drop, and that's part of that lower lobe thing that we talk about in Pilates. But no, I don't want to bring that article. Let's do this one. Here's just a little minute-long thing I want to share with you. I'll share these links with you guys too. Right?
You really do not have to be a singer to enjoy the process of being part of the program.
So I'll show you my example first.
So there's your exhale of Pilates, right? But she's singing.
It's a fantastic tool. It's given me my confidence back.
You're there with like-minded people, talking about your experiences, talking about it, and sharing different things that you do that will help.
So, she was doing the blowing out. They found, sorry, hold on. Stop sharing. It's going to go into another opera, which was in the afternoon on St. Patty's Day doing. Okay. So why I bring up singing, I'm a singer as well. And because of the ability to allow that diaphragm to fully go down, to fully contract and create that vacuum. So let's go ahead and force an exhale and hold that forced exhale for a moment to feel the vacuum, feel the need to come in. So we're going to hold it for 4 seconds, okay? So exhale, blow all your air out. All the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. And hold 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just a little inhale. You can probably feel that the diaphragm dropped. So with patients who can't take in anymore, because they have been trying to inspirate, right, to inhale, you can have them try to push the air out. Might be a little freaky at first, but you can have them force exhale, wait a beat or two, and let them inspire, let them have that inhalation. I think that would be helpful. There's another thing we do. Straws are not cool anymore, so anyway. So I would bring straws to help people feel that forced exhalation. But there's a thing we do as singers that kind of stops the breath from escaping completely. And I think that you could use this too, maybe like yourself, but because it kind of sprays spit everywhere. So you don't want to do that in a clinic, but maybe under a mask. But go ahead and purse the, you're going to make a fish mouth, right? And you're going to take an inhale and you're going to do bubble lips. That's what it's called. Or little kids who do that in the water. Right? You have to let your lips relax a little bit. But it lets you have a longer, can you do it? right? It lets you have a longer exhale. It doesn't make you just kind of let all your air out at once, okay? So if you're having people blow out all their air at once, it's a trout pout. We have a name for it now. It's a trout pout. That's cute. If you're having people let all their air out at once who can't elongate that breath, once they do a lot of Aqua Pilates, they will be able to elongate their breath on each part of the exercise. That's part of what we do, is training that inhale and then exhale, right? That it elongates the whole time. You know, your husband is staring at you. Yeah, you'll get a lot of looks. The other thing is, when you're doing an inhale, if people just gulp their air, so they go, I've inhaled, and then they slowly exhale because you're trying to make them do it on 4 beats or 5 beats, you can do a sniff. So it's called a staccato breathing in Pilates, and you can, why don't you guys just pulse your arms up and down, and we'll take them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, down. And inhale, 2, 4, 5, and exhale. So now on each pulse going up, I want you to sniff a little bit in. Okay, so we're gonna go like this. Sniff, exhale, and puff. Okay, it's one breath, but you've kind of stretched it, you know what I'm saying? So in, sniff, and exhale. Okay, that is a way to show people that even though they can't, I can't concentrate on the breathing, or I can't relax enough to breathe for 4 counts or 5 counts, they can probably do that kind of staccato approach, and to learn to especially, you know, people who are very active, they can't, you know, they're used to running at full speed, they're used to taking their inspiration fast.
Excellent. Okay.
Oh, the lower lobes of the lungs too, I should tell you, is that's where the best, you know, gas exchange occurs. So that cleansing of the oxygen, cleansing of the CO2. So that happens in those lower area lobes of the lungs. And so after COVID, we need to get some mobility there. I wanted to show you guys a couple of rib cage movements. If you could play with me just for a moment. Let's do a thing called the mermaid. And it can be done seated or standing, or with the legs swagged to one side, or on a machine, however, but it's very nice. I'll show you a couple of different mermaids. It's just lateral flexion. So if you have your feet standing there, you can have your hand on one side of your hip, but you're going to reach up and over, and you want to think of the alignment of the spine and the neck continuing the line. So I'm going to reach down here, and I'm going to reach up with this arm without elevating my shoulder, right? I'm just going to bend and inhale. Can you feel this rib expanding a little bit more? This one's kind of squished.
I love this movement.
Yeah, this is a great one. So you don't have to keep them there for so long. If you're in the pool, you can take a noodle and push it down close to them, so they'll be a little bit supported, you know, here, so they feel a little bit elongated. That's one other thing that's nice about the pool, that it does keep that traction in the spine when we're doing these bends, right? So you want to have equal reaching up and reaching down, right? And you can do that also over like a couple of pillows. So if you wanted to lie sideways on a couple of pillows, you could do that as well to close off, because sometimes the ribs, you know, I'm going to compress this rib, and I'm going to lean over and bend, you know, sideways. And if the shoulder, the people with supraspinatus injuries, you know, can do it this way. But I'm bending myself over a little ball or a couple pillows, and I'm inhibiting this lung from expanding, but I'm really I'm doing that one lung expansion. So I really, I think the mermaids, all kinds of mermaids, are great. This is the original mermaid was sitting on the rocks, right? Bending this way and bending back the other way. That's why the mermaid term. And the other mermaid that I wanted to show you was just how deep you can get into the stretch. You can actually kind of go down into the obliques too. If they have been sitting too long, an external oblique is a little bit compromised. So if you do the open stance, you won't feel it. But if you close your stance and soften your knees just a bit and do that same exercise, so just this one here. I don't know if you guys can feel it all the way down into those obliques and into the iliacus and into the pelvis, yeah? Thumbs up, yes. Okay, they could feel it. Okay, cool. So another rib cage movement that we use, I want to give you guys some content too. So, is a breaststroke and a cat stretch. So those are both just thoracic extension, thoracic flexion. And sometimes if people aren't used to moving their rib cage, they move from the hips or wherever it's easiest for them to move from their neck. They'll need some cueing. They'll need some cueing, and usually I'm right there beside them, but not anymore, right? So the cueing for rounding forward would be to use a wall. So you can use a wall, just like we did on the chair. We did a cat stretch. We just peeled down and kept, you know, our butt and our low back there. And I'm just bending, I'm kind of dropping my ribs into my body. There's a cat stretch, like a cat hissing, okay? And in the water, when I do this and press on a noodle, it's ab work, right? And then I can open up that lower thoracic. And then the thoracic extension is the breaststroke. And I just want to lift, I want to stretch my bottom rib here from my hip bone. Those suspenders, I want to elongate them. So bottom rib, hip bone, ASI, so you can put your fingers on those. And I want to elongate here, lift the chest, and of course the neck is going to go in line with the rib cage, not drop back, you know, like a Pez container, but lift and extend, and those ribs come up. So I can also push down on a noodle here, or push down on my couch and facilitate that up. A nice land thing for people is to get them at their kitchen counter and they're waiting for their tea to boil, and to have them do tiptoes and then like a little breaststroke. So they're holding the counter, they're pressing down on the counter, the scapula are sliding down, and they're getting that mobility. So you can do the hissing cat, you can do the breaststroke where you come to take a breath in. And that brings me back to just a natural breath pattern, where the breath pattern when we are lying flat is really like opening and lifting on the inhale, exhaling on the flexion. In general, I like to follow that natural breath pattern unless you're programming for other reasons. But so people always ask me, do you exhale on the exertion of Pilates? And I say, no, we exhale on flexion, or when the body's folding. So it's not necessarily on exertion like weightlifting. So,
Special stretches, as Kate said.
yeah, and just, you know, keeping in mind that tech neck thing, since we are kind of shearing forward, and that, I mean, I find myself all the time after certain meetings, I have to do some stretches. I have to move my rib cage. I'd rather have people move their rib cage, realign their earlobes over by moving the rib cage rather than pulling their head back and pulling their shoulders back, because you're going to get that overcompensation from, you know, people take your words, you guys are the teachers, people take your words like, you know, they've been sent from, you know, the universe. And so when someone tells them to put their shoulders back, they just put their shoulders back. They separate out their shoulders and put them back. And so, you know, what we really want is the ability to have movement, lateral movement, flexion. We want to have movement in that rib cage. So then the arms, the whole upper body can be its expressive self, right? And then it can stack there. You can have this postural ease.
No, that's brilliant, brilliant. I think very well explained, but lots of lovely demonstrations there. Fabulous. We're sort of like, because we want to leave time for Q&A
Yeah.
end here as well. So
do you guys want to see anything? Do you want to see me teaching a little bit from deck?
yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah?
That'd be good.
Okay. I think I've got something here. just because I know with COVID things are different. I have taught from deck a couple of times. Let's see, and I've been teaching from deck for many years, so I can pretty much see what people are doing. But
that was one of my questions. Was now
yeah.
they're hands-on, and
Yeah. So right. So even in the studio where my clients are, I am definitely staying back and describing what they need to engage, what they need to relax. So that's my cueing has always been, this is what you need to engage first, the order of the biomechanic firing. And then this is what you need to relax. You're doing everything with your shoulders. You're doing everything with your head. You're doing everything with steering with your knees. Let's start making sure that you're really starting from the stabilization and the core contraction that we need before we start the movement. So here's like a little, skip my introduction part here. This was at A.R.E.A when we were filming. So, and in the online course, there's a lot of videos. There's a lot of bonus videos.
Really forced exhale. Again, inhale.
You guys have just done the, I'll keep it up.
And then exhale. And the reason we're doing that,
Let me skip the breathing.
inhale.
So I'm going to immerse.
And then
more.
exhale. Create a little bit of expansion like bellows here. And then exhale. Good. So we're going to stay down in the water. And I want you to take it from neutral pelvis into an exhale. Pull the tail under. Inhale, anterior tilt. Exhale, scoop it under. Inhale, anterior tilt. Exhale.
Unlike the
Inhale.
Grammys.
Exhale. And inhale. Two more. Exhale, tuck. And inhale. And exhale, tuck. And inhale. Now find that neutral pelvis where your hip bones and your pubic bone are in the same line, and take your hands in the water. Okay? You're going to turn the upper body. Inhale, center. Exhale. Inhale. Notice that my hip bones are not twisting, right? Just the rib cage, the chest, and the head, right? So take your head with you. Yeah. And you can actually push the water a little bit, right? When you get yourself anchored. Now, speaking of anchoring, we don't want to be gripping the floor with our toes at all, right? Really wrap yourself here, wrap. Feel the waist twist, right? Careful not to lift the hip forward, right? Like a golf swing, but keep just the hips forward. Good. We're going to take the arms out to the side.
I'm going to show a little bit more of it so you can see the body in the pool.
Good. We're going to, everyone's doing this pretty naturally, but I want to point out something. The neck is really following the line of the thoracic vertebrae, right? So when we're going, notice that neck is a continuation of that line, right? I'm not shearing my head forward or anything. It's just boom, right? And the same here. The neck is a continuation of the line of that rib cage. Beautiful. Now let's take it to the side. Push it close to the body. Let's try a wide one first. It steps back, right? You don't walk like this. Okay. Okay. So, now you can
I can see people in the pool, and I can see that they're jumping out of the water. So I can cue them. I pretty much cue them to stay low in the water and land softly, to focus on the back leg extension, to focus on. So you can really learn to cue and correct from the deck if you have even a small group of people. And sometimes when people are not, let me see if I have, in this course, I had one person who was, let me see if I can put this for you, who was trying to overpower everything like I first was when I went into Pilates, right? I had taught kickboxing. I was like, well, let me punch him. So
how you teach planks
this
is going to be like your
this person would fall and kind of
plank
overkill, and then
is
use the
one line
shoulders to
from the ankles
stabilize.
to the shoulders.
And so I
And
don't know if this is.
how we teach it is as you get narrower, it's going to be.
So I'm teaching them to like trust the water and to actually like fall forward and to balance in this kind of
Inhale and exhale.
planking position, using the core and lifting up from below.
And exhale. Relax the shoulders.
And you'll notice that they can't really overpower this and pull down because they will flip.
And
It's
again,
a very
exhale,
delicate
pause,
balance.
and return. Good. Let's do the
Okay,
other arm.
I just
Inhale
wanted you guys to see
and exhale and
that
pulse.
some of the videos that are in the course.
I think probably we'll sort of like
Open it up.
teaching of the breathing and everything. I think you've covered all of my questions, and hopefully there are some from the group.
Yeah, I can do the questions from the group.
Thank you.
We've got a few.
Good.
So,
Two more things that I just want to say. So the first one is that before anybody even asks, you actually have your own music, don't you? So there is the music that can be got through yourself, which is your husband Mark, I think.
Yeah, I have, yeah, you can have the music. I can, it's a downloadable thing from the website. You can share that link too, yeah.
It doesn't have the same PPL licensing that we need for, because it's your music composed by you and played by you guys.
Oh, yes, yes it is, yeah.
So that was one thing, which wasn't really a question, but it was a fact for everybody. And the final one really is that we know, Hayley, you and myself, we've been working really hard to get the Peyow Aqua Pilates through SimSpa.
Yeah.
Going through SimSpa as we speak. It was, it's been put in for a bit. But who else? Because we do have people from around the world listening in tonight,
Okay.
or today, whenever it is in their world.
So the in-person course itself is accredited through A.R.E.A, NASM, A.C.E. Are you familiar with these acronyms? American Council on Exercise, what is it? National Academy of Sports Medicine, and A.R.E.A is now Athletic and Fitness Association of America, and then other two are A.R.E.A, which is Aquatic Therapy and Rehab Institute, and the Aquatic Exercise Association. And the two aquatic companies, as well as SimSpa, are what we are hoping just to have for the online. If you're going to learn this online, there's way more video. There's the same manual, there's the same exams, there's the same everything, but there's way more video because of how we're teaching it. It is accredited by the Aquatic Association, so the A.R.E.A and the A.E.A and probably SimSpa as well. It's a comprehensive program. There's a 160-page manual and a lot of exercises, 85 exercises within the basic and intermediate course. And someone asked me in the beginning of this, so I just wanted to address this, that could this be work for neurological patients? And the answer is yes. There was a clinical case study on this published in 2015, and it was on not neurological patients per se, but it was at the Rehab Institute of Chicago, which is now the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and it is all my people who came into those classes were disabled in some way. So they were stroke patients, MS, and spinal surgeries, and all kinds of people with physical disabilities. And the case studies were just using the basic exercises, the basic level exercises on them, on their core strength and on their balance. So those case studies are in the program.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, I think I'm going to hand over to Hayley now, because she has all the other questions for you. She's been feeling whilst we've been chatting away. So Hayley,
Yeah, and if anyone wants to add any more questions into the chat, do so as well whilst I'm asking these so that I can continue on. So the first question we've got is, what's the big difference between land Pilates and water Pilates? Followed by, do you think Aqua Pilates can be better, say, sometimes with conditions, which obviously you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
But yes, do you want to just give it a bit of information about the differences?
Yeah. So as Linda pointed out early on, the mat Pilates is a lot of it is supine prone, you know, sideline. It's lying down on a mat. So first of all, some people can't be in those positions. There's also a lot of in the mat workouts, unless you program it differently. There's a lot of flexion. So there's going to be a lot of flexion in the body. And we know actually now, with our devices, we need extension. We need a lot more extension exercises than we do flexion exercises. So, to take that Pilates into plank or a vertical position or anything like that where you're a little bit more upright and you're going to work on the extensors a little bit more still with core strength, is going to be great for people physiologically. The other thing is, private sessions with a Pilates teacher with all the apparatuses and the machines is kind of costly. And so I feel like people can join a group class. They can do their land, you know, the machines and the mechanics, and do that one session a week with their trainer. And then they can do a class 1 to 2, 3 times a week that doesn't cost as much. Or they can take their practice to the pool if they have access. It costs a lot less.
It does indeed. The next question relates to the speed of the mat Pilates or Pilates, and how does that then translate to the water? And obviously our pools are notoriously known for being a little bit colder. So, so how do we then challenge them to keep a little bit of warmth going on there? Okay,
so first of all, I teach it at a university, which is, I don't know what this is in Celsius, 79 degrees? I don't know what that is in Celsius.
I will just quickly check. I will, because I don't want to say it wrong, because I
okay. And then at the hotel, which was like 83, 82, between 82 and 84. Then at a hospital, which is 87. And then in the therapy pool, which is 92. So all of those temperatures can work with your
okay, so at 82, yeah, that is 27 Celsius. And 27 is at our coolest gauge, our coldest gauge. Just we can go down to 26 for Olympic pools. So 27.
We'll work fine, yeah.
Yeah, one of the
so the reason I say, because there's rebound exercises, there's full body pull-throughs that are happening. So it can, the core temperature can be elevated throughout the whole thing. The therapy pool where we worked with the disabled individuals, that was a therapy pool where they could really, and arthritis, where they could really take their time working into getting the exercises. They could really slow them down. So of course, when you're learning it, you know, you'll want to slow some of the things down, but there's a lot of warming exercises that are faster, that keep the body warm, and also breathing deeply keeps your core temperature warm.
Okay, fabulous. So the next question is more of a bit of a statement with the mermaid pose when you were laying on the side on your couch. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to obviously re-emphasize this question because they ask, is it normal for all these breathing practices to make me yawn? And the answer is yes, but I obviously wanted to give you and the kind of explanation.
Well, I wanted to show you another mermaid. Well, first of all, rotation would be the other, you know, you've got flexion extension, you've got rotation, and you can combine all of those things too. One of my favorite is the Sideline Mermaid with rotation. So if I'm flexed to the side and I bring my arm forward, I can actually be in extension and in rotation Oh my
I love
goodness.
that one.
Great stretch. Okay, so so all of those things can be in this wonderful passive sideline thing where your spine is not loaded. So the question was, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
In relation to making someone yawn, because obviously
yeah.
they're opening up their lungs and they run their rib cage.
Yeah. So what happens when you start to breathe deeply and you've had a contracted, a diaphragm that's been really high up, pelvic floor that might be really high up, and you haven't taken a deep breath, you're actually creating more need. Your body needed more oxygen, so it's yawning. I have people when they start to exercise and they start to breathe deeper, they it used to be called oxygen debt, where you were like working and then creating this oxygen debt. But I think with stretches, and I think in this case, it is more about how shallow we were breathing before. And then when you start to let a little bit go, when you start to let a little bit of it go, then the body needs to take in more. I don't know. I mean, it could be either, but I feel like it's not something like when you're doing an aerobics class and you've kind of created this need for oxygenation in the bloodstream, then you really feel like yawning because you don't have quite enough, or you have a little bit. It's just at that point where it's coming into the aerobic system. But I feel like this one is that noticing how shallow we're breathing, and now you're allowing that breath to become deeper. Could be two answers, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. The diaphragm action as well, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one was in relation to what was in your hands in the last video clip. They were mini noodles, but they're like, well, about that big, aren't they? But you've got ones that are specific with little hand grips on them.
I use whatever equipment is available. So I feel like I'm not, I'll use dumbbells or cut some noodles in half, or I'll figure out whatever equipment is available. But those were just little kind of heavy duty noodles, so very dense, and I can't think of the name of the company that makes them.
Are they HydroFit?
I don't think they are. Are they?
Okay. Well, they look like it from what I saw, so.
Anyway, they have a little strap that goes across. So what's nice about them is that the hand can go in them and your fingers can stay long, like how we have it in the Pilates straps. We kind of keep reaching through the fingers as well. We don't want to grab onto stuff. So even when I'm holding the noodle, I'm usually just holding it like this and pressing. I'm not really gripping around, even dumbbells and keeping them like that.
So we have the, on the A.R.E.A shop, we have the HydroFit noodle hands, the loops that go around the noodle, and they have the hands strap so that you don't have to hold onto the noodle. And they're really great for someone with arthritis, but that is what you've got there. So you can then cut up your own noodles by the hand strap. And then
you need a hand strap.
Oh yeah. But if someone doesn't want to grip.
Yeah, if I've traveled, I do not have to. I can just cut up noodles, buy a bunch, because that shipping noodles is hard. But those, I do like those ones that you guys have on your website. I do like those ones.
The strap, yeah.
What did someone write to me?
The last question that we've got is, how popular do you find these classes?
Well, I'll tell you what. Two things. When we were at the hospital, the last one where we did the study, and then the new hospital, the classes were a small group training. And in that way that they could only take like 8 people, So in those classes where it's rolled out like it's a little extra fee, or non-members can come and join, but you have to reserve your spot and that kind of thing. When it's rolled out like that, like an 8-week course where they progress, then you can get another level of people in there. When it's rolled out like that, I recommend that, of course, but sometimes that's not possible. So in those classes are always full. At the first hospital, there was a year waiting list. which broke my
A year
heart.
waiting list. Wow.
Because like pretty much someone had to die to get into the class, and that was, they really needed the class, and we just didn't have the capacity to add more than we were offering, you know, with the schedule with the therapist. So that was probably the most waiting, and that was at the rehab hospital. And the other ones at the Swedish Covenant, North Shore Systems in Chicago, they are usually full as well. The places where you can just drop in, university, depends on how it's marketed, but the hotel where it's drop-in, I never have people quit. So if that makes sense to you, that there's no attrition. Like if they grasp onto Pilates and they give it a chance, you know, I recommend I recommend offering it as like a pure class, but if you have to just slide a few things into your classes that you already have because you can't rock the boat too much, then just do that. They won't know what you're doing. They'll be like, oh, this is cool. But if you keep it as, you know, that it is a practice, that's like a yoga practice, you know, that's like a Pilates practice. And I've found that people just keep it as their practice. I just got contacted by a husband and wife who called me like, hey, what's your recommendation? I pulled my back shoveling snow, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Sue and I are going to the, when the place opened up, we go and we practice like every day. Like they've learned the program and they have that program. So they've been with me 20 years.
Wow, that's great.
I mean, I just finished, I was 19 years at the hotel until we just got furloughed. And, you know, I had unless they moved or passed away, you know, they stayed for 20 years. Yeah. So there's really, and I think that my teachers would say the same thing, that people practice until they're like, you know, until they're 99.
What's the maximum number of people you would recommend to be in a class?
Well, I've had 75 in one class, and that's just really a coach, like I'm a Pilates coach at that point. And I'm saying some very general things, the mistakes I think that people are going to make to try to get people to self-correct and stuff. But I'd say under 20 would be an easy group to handle. I'd start with something smaller if you're really wanting to see what they're doing, especially in plank positions. There's a lot of funky things that can go on in plank positions on the underneath where they're overcorrecting with some kind of thing. And in order to see that, it takes a little time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation today. So we are obviously going to be offering this course with A.R.E.A, and you are putting it up with the area code on the 1st of April, because we want to say that again.
No fooling.
Okay. Just so that we then know the points with the SimSpur accreditation, and then we can put that on there. And so I will be sending out an email, but if you are completely interested, 100%, send me an email tonight and I will look at it tomorrow morning. And I will be sending out another email on the 1st of April to give you all the information about Anne's course.
Yes, and Haley, I'll send you those links to some of the
yes.
that I found. There was a neurological one that I think that one person would find interesting as well.
Okay, yeah, make yourself clear to me and I will send that email to you directly. I can't remember who it was that said about the neurological stuff.
Well, I'll just put all the links in the same.
Okay, all right then. Thank you, Anne.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks for joining me.
Anne,
yes.
how much is the discount we're offering to the area?
It's 30 US. I think it's like 21 sterling pounds or something like that. Discount.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Just so that people get an idea and they can start planning.
Yeah.
So lovely. Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you very much, Anne. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you at the next one. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.